Welcome to Education Forum. I'm Herman Badillo, Vice Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University. The improvement of education affects all New Yorkers. This program will focus on the key educational issues and challenges before us all. My guest today is Monsignor Guy Puglisi, who is the Superintendent of Schools for the Brooklyn Diocese. And although he was ordained as a priest in 1971, basically his career has been as an educator. He holds a doctorate in education from Fordham University, where he still teaches at the Graduate School of Education. And he has worked his way up to be superintendent the same way as other superintendents have, starting off as a teacher and assistant principal and principal. And now, Monsignor, how many schools are under your supervision?
In the boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens, we have 158 elementary schools, pre-K through 8, and 21 high schools, 9 through 12.
And how many students is that?
We have 55,000 students in the elementary schools and about 17,800 in the high schools at the present moment.
Now, one of the problems of Catholic schools, I know in the Bronx, when I was president of the Bronx and then congressman, one of the problems was that the Archdiocese couldn't maintain all the schools, and because of the too many poor people, so they had to close a number of schools. Have you had that experience? Are you closing schools, or have they remained pretty much as you?
In years past, we had that experience. Right now, we're pretty stable. One small high school is closing this year for demographic reasons, but we've had great efforts in raising money in order to send the youngsters to school with scholarships, poorer youngsters that we wish to reach, but tuition is making it impossible for them to come. So we have a Futures in Education Foundation where people or corporate givers could either adopt a child or give money for scholarships, and all of that goes to the various schools to keep youngsters in the seats. That has helped us. The diocese also centrally supports 20-some-odd schools that could not be supported solely on the parish level, so that each year funds are given for them to stay afloat in the poorer areas where we wish to stay and offer Catholic education.
Now, generally, what is the ethnic distribution of your students?
Our schools are neighborhood schools, so sometimes, most times, they reflect the ethnic distribution in a neighborhood. But by and large, across the board, we're about 60% minority children at the present moment, almost an equal number of blacks and Hispanics, and now some Asians, and some other youngsters from other countries, very multicultural. About 40% Western European white youngsters. But each school, it depends on where it is located. If it's in an area where there are very many Hispanics or blacks, that would show, because most of the youngsters walk to the school. We do have a few, however, in Park Slope and in Brooklyn Heights, where people travel to bring their children to school. They leave them off early in the morning and pick them up after work, so they serve a clientele more reflective of the businesses around the school.
Well, as in the case of the public schools, you could have an area, say in Bed-Stuy, which is 95% or so African American, and one in Williamsburg, which is 95% or so Hispanic.
Exactly, right? And also very many non-Catholics in some of those schools, depending on the Catholic population of the area.
Now, what is the tuition that the parents pay?
In the grade schools, we go from about $1,000 to $2,000-some-odd dollars. I would say an average of around $1,700 a year, which is a lot for many people who are working and or on public assistance with some caregiver that's able to assist them. In the high schools, the average is around $4,000, but they're also higher, 5 to 6 in some schools.
Now let's talk about the achievement. Without, I don't mean to criticize the public school systems, but I want to establish comparisons. How do the students in the parochial schools in your area compare with the public schools in terms of the achievement levels at different grades, say 4th grade or 7th grade, or upon graduation from high school?
We do reasonably well in many cases may be better than the local public school, but not exponentially better in many cases either. Our kids come with the same problems that the other youngsters in the neighborhood might have. It's just that someone chooses to send them to us. We have very clear expectations. We expect a parent or a caregiver to cooperate and be part of the parish family and functional community that comprises the school. There's a lot of home reporting, high expectations for all children, believing when we accept them that they can learn and expecting them to learn.
Do you have social promotion? That is, are they automatically promoted, or are they left back if they don't perform?
Well, no, they meet standards to be promoted. However, leaving them back, especially in this day and age, does not usually achieve much unless it's done early on, very early on, when a youngster is young enough to perhaps excel with another chance. The big key here is that remediation follows the youngster when he or she is promoted.
Okay, so let's say there's a student in the 7th grade, which is where my wife teaches, and that student, for some reason, is not able to do, let's say it comes from another area or another city and cannot perform at grade level. How would you conduct the remediation?
In some instances, the youngster might be asked to remain in the grade, but very rarely at that age. We would conduct the remediation if the child was qualified through the Chapter 1 program, maybe an ESL program, and many in-house programs of remediation that would tailor the child's program so that he or she could get along, be brought to a higher level.
Would that be after school or in the summertime or within the same classroom?
Within the school day primarily. After school, in very many instances where we have after school programs that last till 5 or 6 o'clock with homework helper, summer school, anything along those lines that we could provide.
Do you have the same school year as the public schools?
Yes, we do.
And the same hours as the public schools?
We do, excepting that many of our schools have what we call extended day. In some schools, it starts quite early in the morning, where youngsters are dropped off and have breakfast. They're supervised. Some have little morning programs for homework. Many now stay after school until the parents can come and get them till 5 or 6 o'clock. Those programs usually, they have recreation and play, but they usually have built into them assistance with homework and some tutoring.
Now, there was a report just issued about a month ago from the Public Education Association that said that only 48% of the students in the public schools graduate from high school in 4 years, which means that 52% probably drop out. What is the experience in parochial schools?
Well, almost everyone that stays with us 4 years will graduate and graduate on time.
Really? Almost everyone?
Almost everyone, but not 100%. And those who stay with us 4 years, some might not stay with us for 4 years. Many need summer school, okay, which we offer each summer, or they need to take courses. Some stay with us longer than 4 years, but we try our best to get them through so that they might receive a diploma.
Okay, when you say almost everyone, what do you mean, like over 90%?
I would say, yes, over 90%.
One of the things that people who may not be exactly familiar with parochial schools say is that the difference between parochial and public schools is that the parochial schools can reject the students. Is that an experience that you have frequently?
That's mythological. And years ago that might have been, and I'm talking many years ago, when schools were packed, when there were huge waiting lists, I think they were more readily let go someone troublesome, and there was a whole different day and age with different resources and philosophies kicking in. It is not easy to let a youngster go from our schools. We try our best to keep everyone.
So that's not the practice now?
That is not the practice, especially during the school year. Everything needs to be documented. If we cannot meet a child's needs actually, and they would be better served somewhere else, that might be the conclusion. We also have the opportunity, and often these days, that perhaps a child is not doing well in one parish school, and dialogue with a neighboring principal, that child might be better in another environment where certain programs are offered, or maybe just a change of environment if things have not gone well. And we have small schools. There might be only one 6th grade teacher, and it's not going well there. It might be good for that child to go to the next parish. So there's a fluidity with that.
Now that brings me up to another argument that is raging in the educational field these days, and that is those who say, for example, Mayor Giuliani is one, who says that he went to parochial schools, as we all know, that he had a very large number of students in his classes, and therefore, in his opinion, class size doesn't really make that much difference. And then on the other hand, we have the Randy Weingarten, who passionately argues that reduction in class size is essential to getting a good education. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think age-wise, I'm a year ahead in school of Mayor Giuliani, and we had very large classes in the grammar school I went to in downtown Brooklyn, huge. But
Like
life
what was it?
Oh, I would say there were 80 children when I started out in school in the 1st grade with one sister. But the world was different then. Most of us went home either to a mother or a grandmother. We changed our clothes, put on our play clothes, had cookies and milk, went out. Life had a rhythm to it. That's gone today. Most of our parents are working parents. Some youngsters come from fragmented homes. Many do not go directly home. They go to a program. Many have different needs. You would never today put that amount of children in a room and expect their needs to be met.
So what is your average class size now?
I would say in the lower grades in the 20s. In the middle school, you might have classes in the 30s. Okay? Over 40 is pushing it.
So where do you stand in the argument between the importance, high importance of low class size and low importance?
Per se, I would say, really essentially, maybe you could not say to me, you can't teach a class because it's large. That's really not the question. The question is, who's in the class? What are the needs of those youngsters? If they go along and they're doing well, you might get a whole crowd of them together and offer a special program. Because these kids could go in, get a lecture, take notes, maybe a distant learning program, that they're able to handle that. But then again, maybe the same child in another subject area or other children can handle that. I don't think you can say today that class size does not matter practically. It does matter. It doesn't mean you need 11 children only, but I certainly don't think you need 50. I think we have to be very cognizant of needs, especially language needs in a multicultural environment. There are so many things. With reading groups in the lower grades, the smaller the better. That's always a principle I would adhere to.
We'll be back after this announcement.
When you're small, the world can seem pretty big. But these kids are learning more about it every day. Because in his spare time, Harry Cooper teaches the children in his neighborhood how to use a computer. And every time he does, he puts the whole world in their hands. Couldn't you do something? No, it's not your money. It's you we want. Come on, pick up that phone.
A kid ahead.
We're back with Monsignor Guy Puglisi, Superintendent of Schools for the Brooklyn and Queens Diocese. Now, you said that over 90% of the kids graduate from high schools. Is that true in the different neighborhoods? For example, I imagine you have in neighborhoods, in poor neighborhoods, very large percentage of kids who come from families which are on welfare, right?
Oh, yes.
So in the poor neighborhoods like Bed-Stuy and Williamsburg, do you get the same rate of graduation as you do in more
Yes, if they go
neighborhoods?
on to a secondary school, yes.
And what about going on to college? What is the What is the number
There's
there?
a very high percentage of that. I don't have the exact percentage.
What about?
I would say the high school I'm in, over 80% are going to some college initially. Now that would be of our 12th grade students, and we'd also be able to track everyone with us for 4 years. How many complete college, I don't think we could tell you that. I do see a need, increasing need, for youngsters, some of whom I have, to first go to a community college and get themselves established. They need that kind of place, and then they could go on to another college. So those Kingsborough, places like that, serve a tremendous need. And many youngsters feel very good going there first. And then, of course, we have the higher end colleges that will come and even recruit many of our youngsters, and they do well.
Well, clearly there's a huge difference in terms of achievement between the public and parochial schools in New York City. If you had to give us 2 or 3 reasons, what would you say is the main reasons why you do so much better in the public schools?
The first reason is a philosophical religious reason. Our tradition, the Pope just wrote this encyclical on faith and reason. We believe that reason can lead one to the threshold of faith. The human mind is important. The dignity of the human person using mind and will is very important. Grace, or the presence of God within us, builds upon nature.
But you take kids who are not Catholics.
Yes, we do. But our philosophy is you are a human being, a child of God. Your mind and will reflect God. You're going to use it. That's how God dwells in you. No zaps, none of that stuff. He informs your intellect and assists your will to tend towards good. We then, in teaching, need to do that. We need to inform intellect and have the youngsters tend towards, as best as we can get them to, sound moral choices. But we educate the youngster who images God. That's a very important philosophy.
And you feel that every youngster can learn regardless of
yes,
background.
wherever they're at. We can bring them from one point to the other. Maybe not the same point, and maybe not at the same time, but that's a basic belief. And the youngsters in front of us are going to learn because they can, and also because we're teaching them. It's a personal failure to not be able to get it across. And I don't mean that in a pedantic way. I mean that in a very self-respect, a dialogue with the youngster, allowing them to enter into discussion, to feel that they're respected, to feel the place they're in builds them up. That's so important.
But your teachers are not anymore all priests and nuns, are they?
No.
What are they now, would you say?
They're over 90% lay people.
So then do you feel that those lay people are going to have the same commitment to faith that you would have?
Yes. From what I see, I would say it's less uniform in the sense of a particular religious order with a particular charism does things a certain way. But most of our young people who are teaching did come through our system. They carry on the charism. We're very, very conscious of making certain that when they come into us, they get enough staff development, enough kind of religious staff development, that we can carry on our tradition the way it's been handed on. The school system in America started with lay people, developed into largely religious. Now we're back to a lay model. So this is not new. And for years, we've had very many faith-filled lay people in our schools, and they're a great blessing.
So the faith is one factor. What other factors are there?
The other factor flowing from that faith factor is expecting youngsters, within reason, to produce to their ability and not accepting less and not giving up. I want you to do this. Your name is on that paper. You can do it. Now, that doesn't mean frustrating a youngster who may have problems doing that, but it does mean getting the best out of them. That's not good enough. Taking the time to call them to an expectation. Consistent expectations throughout the school. In every class, you need an assignment pad. In every class, the assignment's on the board. In every class, homework is to be handed in on loose leaf paper with a heading. In every class, you need a dated notebook. That doesn't stifle teacher creativity. That is the outline in which they may be creative. So when 3 or 4 kids go to a home at night in different grades, it's not a mystery. The parents know what they need. 1 in the 5th grade and 1 in the 7th grade. Where's your notebooks? Let me see your homework. Do I need to sign your homework tonight?
Well, you were presuming involvement by the parents, too.
Well, yes, to that degree, we expect that. Oh, yes. And there's communication with them.
Okay.
Verbal communication, a call up, you know, whenever anything goes wrong, that kind of thing.
Okay, one other factor. What other factor?
Okay, so we have the religious factor, and we have consistency, and very importantly, a sound and developing program of instruction with staff development, teacher staff development. All of our schools, grammar schools included, almost to a 1, some of our grade schools are still in process, are middle states accredited. That gives us a diet of strategic planning in each school that a district superintendent monitors. So they have goals that the faculty work on together. They seek to improve standards together, or push for technology perhaps right now. We're doing wonderful things with the new state standards that have come out. A lot of teacher training, that's essential. The staff development component, the gathering of the faculty into a functional community, working with the parents, working with the youngsters, that's very important. So I'd say the religious dimension, consistent demands, and a strong functional community of learning on all levels.
Okay, now, New York State just recently approved 100 charter schools, 50 to be authorized by the Board of Regents and 50 by the State University. Does the Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens expect to set up some charter schools?
Not the way the legislation is written now. Religious schools are discouraged, of course, in that. We would expect from legislation a school choice program where parents can decide to send their youngsters to us with some backing, financial backing for their education. The way the charter school program is set up right now, it's basically a reform program for public schools. It will call upon the public schools to offer different dimensions, different people offering different programs. That is not what we're about. We're not about teaching religion at the end of the day. We're about infusing our values in the subject areas. We're about keeping our religious identity. The program, the way it is written now, would not allow for that or would mitigate what we have.
So you will not participate in the charter school program?
No, there might be a Catholic group, a lay group that wishes to do that. There might be some clergyman somewhere on his own that wishes to do that. But the Diocese of Brooklyn, and I believe the Archdiocese of New York at the moment, is not going that route.
So do you see any possible legislation that might enable you to participate?
Maybe down the road a piece if it was written differently, but at the moment, no. The legislation we're looking for is a more widely based school voucher package where parents would be aided to choose, and they might choose us. There are other schools going to open now too, entrepreneurs all over the place opening schools, which will be healthy competition for us as well as for the public schools.
But if vouchers were to come about, then that would be an individual decision by the parents.
And we'd have to measure up, and they'd come to us if they wanted us, and not if they didn't.
Well, I think last year the mayor came up with a program where, which was basically run by Peter Flanagan,
Yes.
which provided for private enterprise to raise money for young people to go to parochial schools.
Yes.
And that was enormously successful, wasn't it?
It was. We benefited from that, particularly in the East New York area, where many youngsters did come, and they're doing well. That seems to have worked. And that was a kind of a private initiative, and the people made their choice to send their children to us, and that seems to be working beautifully.
So do you think the recent Supreme Court decision authorizes the approval of vouchers by individual states?
I believe that it's begun in some states. I think it's a good thing. I would hope someday we get it here. But we don't rest our everyday operation, our hopes, or our philosophical program on any of those things. We go along with what we know we need to have, which is our strong tradition of faith and reason. That's what we offer.
And how large are your waiting lists?
In some schools, they're quite large. In other schools, they aren't because of demography. People in Brooklyn and Queens, demographic changes are rampant. In 10 years, a neighborhood will change. A whole Western European neighborhood will become Asian. And the new population will look at us at first and wonder, and then decide whether they're going to send their youngsters to us or not. So for a while, we'll have some empty seats there, and then we build up new enrollment. We remain where we are, basically. We do not leave the inner city. We remain where we are no matter who is there. That's our basic philosophy, to be available to offer Catholic education to whoever can come. My main concern is that we don't lose the poorer youngsters who need us the most. That's why we have this thrust on giving out scholarship money for parents to keep their kids in who can no longer afford it. A breadwinner dies, a tragedy happens in a family. We want to keep the kid. We want to offer to a youngster whose family might not be able to afford it but wants to send their children to us a Catholic education. So in many of our religious education programs, there are youngsters whose parents would like to send the children to us all day long and can't. We want to give them that opportunity by raising money so that they could come into
And in
the
that
school
area,
system.
you have to depend not on government, but on private enterprise.
Yes. Corporate donations, individual donations. We're doing our best to get those now, with some success. And we have this Futures in Education Foundation, and anyone who wanted to adopt a child and send them to one of our schools could do that, pay part of the tuition. That's a vehicle for doing that.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
You can reach us by email at our website, www.cunytv.cuny.edu, to let us know what you think, or write to us at CUNY TV, 25 West 43rd Street, Suite 1220, New York, New York, 10036.